Hello and welcome to episode 259 of bookcareers.com live. Today we continue our conversation about AI in publishing and publishing jobs of the future. And our guest is Heloise Wood, the Deputy News Editor of the Bookseller magazine. Hello, Heloise. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Suzanne. Thanks for having me.
I saw that you recently undertook a survey about the use of AI in publishing. Please, can you tell our listeners how the survey came about?
So I was keen to run the survey because we'd written a lot about the more ideological aspects of AI and the controversial aspects, particularly in regards to the data use and access bill that's been going through Parliament, and how a lot of authors are understandably very angry with how their work has been used by training models. So we were talking a lot about the ideology, but I was aware that a lot of people in publishing use AI quite frequently, and it's not necessarily talked about. And because there's such strong feeling on the issue, I felt that it would actually be helpful to run an anonymous survey so that people could feel free to talk about how they used it, why they used it, why they didn't use it, what they thought was good or not, so that we could get kind of an honest portrait of how it is being used.
That's great. And what did the results show?
So we had just under 100 responses, and it was quite a broad mixture. So we had librarians, we had academic publishers, agents, scouts, quite a strong contingent of people in marketing and publicity, which I had thought because some of the people I'd spoken to anecdotally had kind of talked about using AI in those departments. And then quite a few editors, and people in production and sales and rights. And in terms of the kind of the more quantitative data, obviously it's a fairly small number because it's just under 100. But it was quite useful in seeing like what companies were encouraging people to do or not to do. So I think about a fifth of people was said that they were encouraged to use it by their companies. A third were encouraged not to use it by their companies. Around 58% were concerned about AI. And then just under 1 in 5, about 18% were optimistic. And then one of the things I found the most interesting was the regularity of use. So about a third of the people said they'd never used it. 20% of people said they occasionally used it. And then another 20% said that they used it every day or more. And it was really interesting seeing a complete range. And so a lot of people who were like really aghast that I would even run a survey on AI, and felt that there was a lot of emotive language. And people just saying, you're obviously very pro AI, and I can't believe you're entertaining any of this, seriously. And then other people were saying, well, I use it in all these different ways. I use it in idea generation, I use it for marketing and comps, and I use it for book tours or promotional, brainstorming and things like that. A lot of people suggested that they used it for an initial like jumping point for idea generation and brainstorming,
Yeah,
but then didn't, deviated from that and just used it as a kind of very broad brush starter. And yeah, and then a lot of people talked about the issues with the AI and the problems that they'd had, which I can go into. Yeah, so I mean, some of the things that they talked about were the ecological impact and the concerns over the environment, and the fact that a lot of companies weren't talking about the environmental impact of AI. And some people felt that it was hypocritical that these companies were making pledges in terms of planting trees or carbon offsetting or things like that, but then were very happy to use AI. And then others had concerns where they talked about it creating sources that were made up. So for academic research, and also creating racial stereotypes.
Yeah.
And there were concerns, and that was something that I hadn't really thought about, but how it could halt some diversity and inclusion around that, and very much encouraging a very homogenous sense of, what is right and what's a good example of something. And then others were saying they just felt like the checking was so onerous after AI that it wasn't worth it. And one person said, I see a lot of job adverts increasingly that are for checking AI, and surely it's better just to employ people to do the job initially. And I mean, one person I was surprised that she said, I think she worked in marketing or communications, and she said that when she goes on holiday, her boss just uses ChatGPT to do her work rather than get someone to cover. And yeah, and a lot of people were talking about how they have concerns about how it will affect critical thinking. And one librarian talked about this in particular, and she said that she'd spoken to a professor who'd noticed the same thing in terms of the students, because she also teaches on AI, and she was saying it's impacting on students' ability to think critically. And others also mentioned that they're seeing new young people entering the industry and they're not able to pivot or think as laterally or creatively because they are using AI so much, or they have so many tools that are available to them. And that was very interesting to me. And that, what one or two people said as well was that although AI could be seen to replace some grunt work and some of the more repetitive elements of jobs, actually learning how to do the more administrative aspects of a job can help with the more creative or sophisticated or managerial aspects later on. So if we prioritize AI too much, we will get this skills gap. So yeah, I find it really fascinating.
It sounds it. It sounds it. I mean, some of the things that you mention, I mean, it's like all the AI grab where they've been using it to train AI, where they were saying that some of the serious implications are that the academic research papers they may have used may have been 20, 25, 30 years old, and that data is now very much out of date. But using AI, it's coming up as being very current. And
That's
particularly
interesting.
that was medical and medical journals, that some old research that had long since been dispelled was now coming up as fact thanks to
Mm,
AI. And
that's interesting.
it's been interesting because I've been testing AI, and that's with Caitlin, who works with me. We've been testing lots of different AI systems. And one thing that's come across is, well, the designers' jobs appear to be safe, and that AI seems to put in 50 words where 10 will do if you ask AI to write you something. And it's definitely not perfect. It might be good for giving somebody a leverage, an idea, but the problem is because it's a database, everybody else who's asking the same questions will probably get the same answers, and there goes the originality of thought. So
Mm,
I find the whole thing really fascinating. I mean, I do think we're seeing processes, but like you say, knowing it's like the disappearance of some of the processes in production, that some of the people coming into production, because they've never had the same kind of experiences with print and typesetting and typography in the same way that somebody who's perhaps been in the industry for a long time has, that they might not be able to spot the same errors quickly in the way somebody who's got that longevity of experience. So I
That
find the whole thing just fascinating, really.
That's it, and it comes back, like you said, so much to the originality of thought and the critical thinking and the weight that you can give to particular sources, because AI might be able to ingest a great number of sources, but actually it often takes a human to judge which is more valid out of those sources, and that's very hard to replicate, isn't it?
It is, because it doesn't have a brain. It's a
Mm.
database that's been trained, doesn't have a brain. So, was there anything that really surprised you about the results?
I think one of the things that surprised me, as I mentioned, was the person who said that her boss uses AI to do her job when she's away. And that felt surprising. And also, yeah, the people that were saying that their companies were very public about their environmental goals and activities, whilst also wanting to use AI. And yeah, perhaps I was surprised that so many people seem to say that their companies were really encouraging them to use AI. And quite a few people said that the seniors are very keen on people using AI, but they're not seeing the problems in the AI
Yeah,
further down the food chain.
yeah, I can see
Um,
that happening.
yeah,
Can see that happening, and you can almost see that if you're asking, if you've got two publishers who've got similar books and are planning similar planning marketing campaigns and both using the same sort of AI for those marketing campaigns, they could come up with almost like identical. If you're
yeah,
asking it
yeah.
to write social media posts, if you're asking it to write a
Mm,
marketing brief or a headline or something,
mm,
those the AI could possibly come up with exactly the same thing with maybe a word difference.
mm,
And you can see
mm,
that we are, it does seem to be a very narrow road that it could take us down and just
mm.
make the industry devoid of creativity, which for us publishing is fatal, I think.
I mean, actually, something else that I did find surprising that I hadn't thought about was one or two people saying, I'm neurodivergent and this is life-changing for me. And having AI enables me to work on a more equal footing with other people, other colleagues who are neurotypical. And it's just changed my life. And that felt so powerful to me. And that was something that I hadn't considered. And they were saying that they feel a lot of the discussion about AI is seen through a very neurotypical lens,
Mm,
and that it is better to engage with AI and understand it and understand what it can do and the pros and cons, and rather than to just reject it outright.
yeah.
And I think what they were talking about, although they didn't explicitly say, was part of the organizational assistance that AI can provide, that I think a lot of people probably use in publishing and also in their lives, and aren't necessarily even aware sometimes that they're using AI. And that's what one or two of the people also mentioned, was that it's inbuilt, increasing in things like Adobe and computer programs and Google, that you have to constantly make an active choice not to use it. I was speaking to a really interesting academic. I don't know if you've come across her. She's called Clementine Collett, and she's at the University of Cambridge, and she's doing just really interesting research in generative AI and the impact on the novel. And she's been talking to so many people across the industry, and she was saying that some people that she thinks will be hardest hit will be people like audiobook narrators, ghostwriters,
Yeah.
and translators.
Translators, yes.
Yeah, I didn't hear so much from those groups in my research, but I would love to talk to them more because I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, that's some of what I'm hearing as well, is it's where it can be, I mean, there's companies that do audiobook narration um, using AI. Um, we're seeing translation already using AI. Ghostwriters, that not sure because that still could need some creativity, but where the creativity's already been done and it just needs to be the process. And I mean, this is where I'm seeing AI mostly being used is processes,
Mhm.
is to, instead of doing 10 stages when you like, if you're in sales and you open a you've got a new account inquiry, and instead of you having to do 10 stages of do this, do this, do this, and do this, the AI could do it all for you in a matter of minutes.
Mhm.
Um, it's that automation that I think we'll probably see more of. And this brings me on to our next question, because we're having a huge ongoing discussion about the publishing jobs of the future. Aside from the things that you've mentioned, can you think of any more jobs that are most at risk, or what new jobs do you see emerging from the use of AI?
I think as well as the ghostwriters, the audiobook narrators, the translators that we've talked about, I think there will be a lot of editors and researchers who are feeling concerned. And some of the editors spoke about that in the research, and they said, I'm being encouraged to use AI as part of my editing job, and I'm very resistant to it because my job is to edit, and I don't want to be replaced by AI, and I want to be able to do my job fully as a human, which is completely understandable. And so I think there's a lot of concern about that, and particularly perhaps copy editing. And I think a lot of academic publishers are engaging a lot with AI. Um, and I think there is a lot of concern, and it feels like perhaps this is changing the way jobs are being created. And it seemed interesting to me that someone mentioned that there are more job adverts mentioning AI and checking AI. And I would be interested I don't know if that's something you've noticed in job adverts, if you've seen AI mentioned much yet.
I've seen it mentioned here and there. I wouldn't say it's been dominating
Yeah,
adverts
yeah,
yet.
yeah,
Doesn't mean to say that that will happen in
yeah.
the future. I mean, it could be that AI goes on the list of job requirements along with things like Biblio and InDesign in the future. But I think the editing is really interesting, because if you look at what AI is churning out, um, and I'm finding it really easy to spot at the moment, particularly on people's CVs when AI has been used. It is so easy. As I said earlier, AI puts in 50 words when 10 will do. There's often an overuse of em dashes and commas, and where the editors' jobs will probably be safe is they may be checking the AI for some period of time. But I think after a while that people will actually say, well, we really need the editors back doing this.
Yeah, I
I
hope so.
think we're going to go like with outsourcing. We go
Yeah.
through this period with outsourcing where for about 3 years, publishers like, let's outsource everything. And then by year three, they're starting to bring everything back in-house. And then by year five, they're looking at the cost and they're saying, let's outsource everything. And it seems to be a churn.
Mm,
It seems to be a churn. I mean, I've been in the industry so long now. I keep seeing these
yeah.
patterns
Yeah.
coming round and round again. Let's outsource. Let's cut these jobs, and let's use freelancers to do something, and then they bring it all in house. But that's what I think we're going to start seeing with AI, because if if it remains static, it is going to become very repetitive very quickly.
I think you're right, definitely. And I think actually that's what some people mentioned in the research, that actually, if you think about the concern around Amazon and ebooks and audio, the industry is still carrying on. And actually, it was interesting at our marketing and publicity conference yesterday. Philip Stone was was giving an overview from Nielsen, and he was saying actually, the volume of print books is pretty similar to where it was 10 years ago. And actually, I think he was saying ebooks and audio pretty similar to about 10 years ago. Things do kind of stay more constant often than you think.
Yeah.
And I think hopefully increasingly we will value originality and critical thinking and creativity and the more human aspects of the industry. And another job role that I've thought of actually that there is fear about it being at risk is a lot of publicists and marketing professionals and campaigns professionals, and they say you can get PR databases from AI now in a way that used to be more a specialism of the publicist honed over many years. And also in terms of devising a campaign, AI can come up with certain aspects of that, and there's concern about that. But again, the context and the originality and the creativity, like hopefully we will increasingly value that. But it will be interesting to see to what extent it impacts on genres of books and things like that. If we get more experimentation or originality in fiction, perhaps we're seeing Faber, I think, brought out a book by Sarah Hall with the first human stamp recently to say that it was completely
Yeah.
written by a human, and to what extent we will get that, and the transparency that we'll see across the trade. I would be very interested to see to what extent publishers will engage with this. I know that literary agencies are starting to put on their website more to aspiring authors that they won't have manuscripts that have had AI in any form. And then other agencies are saying in their contracts with authors that the author has to tell them if they've used AI in any way.
Mhm.
And it's just really interesting. There's such a range of ways that AI could be used from a tiny, even when I was looking at the research and my computer was encouraging me to use AI to, interrogate the research. And it's very hard often to make a conscious decision and say, I'm not going to engage with it and I'm going to do it myself. But yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah. It's what you're saying about PR and marketing and the way that AI can put together like PR lists, and that the PRs possibly feeling slightly redundant in all of that. The thing AI can't do is human contact.
Exactly.
And if you look at how PR,
Yeah.
marketing, sales, rights, editorial work, there's a human side to all of our jobs. and the design. There's a human side to all of those jobs
Yeah.
because you can tell AI to do something, but it's going to be very on the nose about it. It's going to be, if you don't put in the right command,
Exactly. Yeah.
you're not going to get the touchy-feely feelings from it at any time.
Mm.
And AI is not going to read or understand when the PR you're communicating with is getting angry.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Or when to pull back, when to push forward. It cannot do that.
And you're right, because our industry is so based on personality and personal relationships, and there's such a rich history in the industry as well that AI won't be able to, comprehend in the same way. And I mean, that's what I would recommend, and I'm sure you do, to people that are keen to join the industry and are perhaps feeling fearful of AI, is that actually the ability to just reach out to people and ask to go for a coffee or ask for some advice. Generally, I think people in the industry are very helpful, aren't they? And
Very, very helpful.
actually, I don't think they get asked that as much as people might think from the outside. So I think that's something that can help, you get a bit of a sense of the industry if you're feeling worried.
Yeah, thank you, Heloise. It's really interesting. Is there anything else you'd like to add to the discussion?
I think the sense that I got was it is important to understand AI and actually try and separate the more ideological aspect from the nuts and bolts of it. And you don't necessarily have to become an expert in it. But I think if you say, I'm not going to touch anything to do with AI or be in a room where it's even discussed, then that will alienate you from the industry. And
Yeah,
I think it's better to be fully informed as much as you can and say, well, I think these aspects could be helpful for this type of situation. But I think generally I would suggest that we don't use, I think if you can back up your reasoning and your instincts by fact and evidence as much as possible, I think that's really helpful. And it also made clear to me there's a lot that I don't understand about AI, and it's moving so fast. And I also think just that a lot of people are using it, perhaps they don't even know they're using it. A lot of other people are using it and are perhaps a bit scared to admit that they're using it. There's almost kind of underground groups, I think, of people. Apparently, there's a Facebook group of authors using AI that's actually very hard to join, apparently. But I think if you can come to the table with information and context and examples and talk to people about it, then that's probably more helpful than just getting caught up in the ideology of it.
yeah, I agree. I think that if you're saying you're never going to use even open AI or ever touch it, then you're doing yourself a disservice in skills because you need to understand how it works, what it's looking for, in order to be able to spot what others using it or when you think
That's
others have
exactly
used it.
that. That's it. And I think even if you're becoming an expert, so you know when to spot, bad AI, that's like you said, you see it in CVs, that's really useful, isn't it?
It's shameful when I see it in CVs
Yeah.
because if somebody can't craft the words to go on their CVs,
Yeah.
let's say it's CV, then I wonder whether they've actually got the skills for the job that they're applying for, because in all of our jobs we have communication as almost a number one skill, and we communicate by words because hey, we're book publishing.
Yeah. And actually, that brings us back to our earlier point that I think is really important, that often the struggle and the initial failure and the inconvenient and boring administrative aspects of jobs are often helpful ensuring that you progress and you learn to think creatively and critically and understand how to do admin from some point of view. So yeah.
Okay. And just to wrap up, what book are you reading at the moment?
So I've just finished the most amazing book by Charlotte Runcie called Bring the House Down. And it's published by HarperCollins, I believe. And it's just wonderful because it's really pacey, really unputdownable. It reads like a thriller. It's about a theatre critic who becomes embroiled with a woman who's doing a one-woman show at Edinburgh. He gives her a bad review and then he sleeps with her. And he doesn't tell her that he's just reviewed her show and given her 1 star. And that's just within the first few pages. It's amazing because it touches on so many interesting points about art and criticism and misogyny and how we engage with art. Also as a journalist, it's really fascinating, and the fact that it's set in Edinburgh is really fun. But I loved it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for your time today. If you're looking for a job in book publishing, please subscribe to this channel and visit bookcareers.com for further resources, including how to access one-to-one career guidance. And don't forget to buy the book, How to Job Search in Book Publishing, The Ultimate Insider's Guide. May you all be doing a job you love and being paid the salary that you so richly deserve.